I just found out my wife secretly sold our family home for $350, $0, and is now claiming I owe her half, despite forging my signature to do it during our divorce settlement. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be nothing but a lying, cheating, money-grubbing bitch. Honestly, the whole thing started subtly. At first, I noticed she was being a little more distant, more secretive with her phone, but I brushed it off as work stress or some bullshit excuse she threw my way. We'd been married for 8 years, and for the most part, I thought we had a decent life. 2 kids, a nice house, decent jobs. Nothing spectacular, but enough to keep us comfortable. Then, last month, things took a sharp turn. I came home early from work on a Thursday because I wasn't feeling well. I wanted to surprise Lisa and the kids, maybe cook dinner, make the evening nice. As I pulled up to the driveway, I saw her car parked in the garage, but what caught my eye was the strange, newer SUV in the driveway I didn't recognize. That was odd, because she usually drove her old sedan. I decided to check the mailbox first, nothing out of the ordinary there, just the usual bills and junk mail. But then I noticed her phone sitting on the kitchen counter, unlocked, with a message notification that said, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Love you." My stomach dropped. I didn't even think. I grabbed her phone and looked. It was a text thread with some guy named Mike. They'd been sexting, talking about meeting up, and there were explicit messages, fucking disgusting stuff. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I had no idea she was cheating on me. I mean, I knew she'd been working late more often, but I thought she was just busy. Turns out she'd been sneaking around for months. That night I didn't sleep. I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I'd found. I was furious, devastated, and honestly kind of numb. How could she do this? How could she lie so blatantly? I'd been working my ass off to provide for this family, and all the while she'd been screwing some guy behind my back. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was sheer disrespect. I thought we had a foundation of trust, and now I saw it was just a house of cards. A few days later, I decided to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. I sat her down in the living room, my hands trembling. "Lisa, I found out about Mike. I saw the messages. How long has this been going on?" Her face went white for a second, then she scoffed, trying to brush it off. "You're overreacting. It's nothing, just some stupid flirtation. You're paranoid." She looked me dead in the eyes, her voice dripping with sarcasm, and added, "You're just jealous because I still look good and get attention. That's all it is." I couldn't believe her. She was lying through her teeth, denying everything, acting like I was the crazy one. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her confess everything. But I stayed calm because I knew this was just the beginning. I had to figure out what to do next. I started to dig through her phone, her emails, her bank accounts, anything I could find. That's when I stumbled upon something even worse, her secret sale of the house. She sold our family home for $350, $0, forging my signature during our divorce proceedings. I couldn't believe it. She'd taken everything, lied, cheated, and now she was claiming I owed her half of the sale. I felt like the ground was opening beneath me. How could she do this? How could she steal from her own family and then have the nerve to come after me for money? I knew I had to get to the bottom of this. I had no idea how deep her lies went or how far she was willing to go to cover her tracks. This was just the start of a long, dark road, and I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. I had to plan my next move carefully. I didn't want to just walk away. I wanted justice, and I wanted my dignity back. But I also knew that if I didn't act fast, she might disappear with everything we'd built. I felt betrayed, furious, and utterly lost, but I also knew I had to fight back. This wasn't just about the house or the money, it was about who she really was behind all those lies. After discovering what she did, selling the house behind my back, forging my signature, and trying to claim half the sale, I knew I had to get some clarity. I couldn't just sit there and let her spin her lies. I started digging into the paperwork, bank statements, and the divorce documents I could access. It was a mess. Turns out, she had gone through with the sale about 2 months ago, right after I'd been hospitalized for a minor surgery. She had managed to get the sale finalized without my signature, forging it on the divorce settlement documents. and then deposited the money into an account that I didn't even know she had opened. I couldn't believe she had the nerve to do all that while I was laid up, vulnerable. It was like she was waiting for the perfect moment to screw me over completely. I found the forged signature in the divorce papers, and honestly, it made my blood boil. I'd trusted her for years, and she'd just stolen from me and our kids. And to make it worse, she was now claiming I owed her half of the sale. Like I was some kind of deadbeat who needed to pay her off. I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time I was prepared. I waited until she came home that evening, acting as if everything was normal, but I had all the evidence on my phone. When she walked in, I looked her right in the eyes and slid the documents across the table. "Lisa, I know everything. The sale, the forged signature, the money. How could you do this? How could you lie and cheat like this?" Her face twisted into a sneer, and she started to lie again, saying I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, and that I'd misunderstood. I cut her off. "You forged my signature, Lisa. The house was sold without my consent, and you're trying to tell me I owe you money? That's theft. That's fraud." Her eyes widened for a moment, then she recovered her composure. "You're crazy. You're just jealous because I still look good and get attention from other men. You're insecure." That was her go-to excuse. She always tried to turn things around, make me look like the villain, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I was done with her lies. I said I needed to see her phone, her bank accounts, everything. She hesitated, but I was firm. I knew there were more secrets hiding somewhere. When I finally got into her email and bank accounts, I uncovered even more lies. She had been secretly dating Mike, the guy from the texts, for over a year. She'd been seeing him behind my back the entire time she was supposedly working late. It was like she had a whole double life. That night I felt like my world was crashing down. I was angry, hurt, and confused. How could she do this to me, to our family? I thought about all the sacrifices I'd made, working late, missing my kids' birthdays, trusting her to be faithful, and she had been screwing around and lying every step of the way. I couldn't even look at her without feeling disgusted. I wanted to scream, to break everything, but I kept my composure. I knew I needed a plan, and I needed to be smart about it. The next day, I started to think about my options, what I could do legally, financially, emotionally. I realized I could just walk away and let her get away with everything. I had to fight for my rights, for my name, for my dignity. The money from the house sale was gone. She had already moved it into some offshore account I didn't know about. She was planning to run, I was sure of it. I needed to act fast. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in divorce and fraud cases. I told him everything about the forged signatures, the sale, the affair, the lies. While I was gathering evidence, Lisa was acting even more bitchy and dismissive. She kept saying I was overreacting, that I was being paranoid, that I was jealous of Mike, of her. She threw tantrums, called me insecure, and tried to manipulate the kids against me. It was clear she thought she could get away with everything, but I wasn't going to let her. I knew I had to get everything documented, texts, emails, bank statements, so I could prove her lies in court and maybe even get her criminally charged for forgery and theft. The emotional toll was brutal. I kept oscillating between rage and sadness. I was furious she'd betrayed me so completely. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach every time I saw her smirk or heard her excuses. But I also felt deep sadness, because I still loved her, or at least I wanted to. I kept asking myself where I went wrong, why I hadn't seen the signs. But now I knew the truth. She was a liar, a cheat, and a thief. And I was done being the victim. I'd fight this, no matter how ugly it got. I owed it to myself and my kids to get justice. After I gathered all the evidence, her forged signature, the bank statements, the texts with Mike, everything, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because I finally had proof that she'd been lying and stealing, and dread because I knew this was just the beginning of a long legal battle. I also knew that confronting her again wasn't going to be easy. She was already defensive, trying to spin her lies, calling me paranoid and insecure. But I had to stay firm. I decided to meet with a lawyer, someone who specialized in divorce law and financial crimes. I scheduled an appointment for the very next day. When I sat down with him, I laid out everything I knew about the house sale, the forged documents, the affair, the money she'd hidden. He listened carefully, taking notes, then leaned back and said, "This is serious. Forging signatures, selling property without consent, hiding assets, that's criminal. You've got a case for fraud, and I suggest we move quickly to file for an emergency injunction to freeze her assets and prevent her from running with any more money." Hearing that made me feel a little better, but also angry. I couldn't believe she had been so manipulative, so calculating. She lied to my face for months, and now she was trying to squeeze me for money she didn't deserve. I asked about the house sale. How could she do that without my approval? He explained that she had likely forged my signature and manipulated the divorce paperwork to her advantage. "We can challenge the sale, get the court to declare it invalid, and seek restitution for the amount she took," he said. But the biggest shock was still coming. As I handed over the evidence, I realized she'd been planning this for a while. She'd been secretly seeing Mike for over a year, and all the while she'd been pretending to be the perfect wife. I felt betrayed on every level. My trust, my respect, my stability all shattered. I was furious at her, but I also felt a deep sense of loss. I'd loved her once, believed in us, and now I saw her for what she truly was: a liar, a thief, a manipulator. Over the next few days, I watched her carefully. She was trying to act normal, but I saw the cracks. She was panicked, making frantic calls, trying to cover her tracks. I also started to prepare for the worst, that she might try to leave town or hide more assets. I contacted a private investigator to keep tabs on her movements. I didn't want to be caught off guard again. Meanwhile, she kept up her act of victimhood. She'd scream at me, accusing me of being paranoid, jealous, insecure. She'd say I was ruining her life, that I was the one cheating by doubting her. It was classic gaslighting. I knew better now. I had all the proof I needed. I even found emails where she was planning her escape, talking about how she'd take the kids and start fresh somewhere new, where I couldn't find her. That was the moment I realized I had to act fast if I wanted to protect my children from her schemes. I told her I was filing for divorce, and I was going after everything she stole. I made it clear I wasn't going to let her get away with this. She yelled, threw tantrums, and called me controlling, but I didn't care. I just wanted her out of my life, out of my way. I also started to document her behavior, her threats, her lies, her attempts to manipulate the kids. I wanted everything on record. If this went to court, I'd need solid evidence. That night I sat alone, staring at the documents I'd collected. I felt exhausted, drained, but also more determined than ever. I realized that she'd spent years building her lies, her schemes. She'd betrayed me, our family, and everything we'd worked for. But I wasn't going to let her win. I was going to fight for my rights, for my children's future, and for the truth. I knew this was just the beginning, and I had a long, ugly road ahead. But I also knew I wouldn't back down. Not now, not ever. The days that followed were a blur of legal consultations, surveillance, and trying to keep my emotions in check. I stayed up late every night, poring over every detail, every email, every text she'd ever sent. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. It was like peeling back layers of a lie that she'd carefully constructed over years. She had been planning her escape for a long time, and I was only just catching up. I couldn't believe how deep her deception went. I remember the moment I found the email where she was talking about moving out of state with the kids, how she'd hide assets, and how she'd try to make me look like the bad guy. That was the tipping point. I knew I had to act fast before she disappeared with everything. I contacted the lawyer again, and we filed for an emergency injunction to freeze her assets, including the money from the house sale. It felt good to finally be taking control, but I also felt sick knowing she'd been lying to me for so long. She was still insisting she was innocent, claiming I was just jealous and insecure. She threw herself into a whirlwind of accusations, crying crocodile tears and trying to manipulate the situation. She'd say things like, "You're just mad because I still look good and I have options." Or, "You're the one cheating by doubting me." It was all bullshit. I could see right through her. She was panicked, desperate, and losing control. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I also started to document her interactions with Mike, her secret meetings, and her plans to leave town. I hired the private investigator to follow her, and what I saw confirmed my suspicions. She was packing bags, meeting with movers, and making arrangements to leave. She was trying to cover her tracks, but I had enough evidence to blow her plans wide open. I knew I had to act quickly if I wanted to stop her from running away with our kids and the money. One night I confronted her again, this time armed with everything I'd gathered. I told her I knew about her plans, about the sale of the house and her affair. Her face twisted in anger and she snapped, "You're just paranoid. You're losing your mind. I don't know what you're talking about." But I showed her the emails, the forged signatures, the bank statements. She froze for a moment, then started to scream at me, calling me all sorts of names. She accused me of trying to ruin her, of being a controlling bastard. I told her she was done, that I wasn't going to let her destroy everything we had. I told her I was filing for divorce and seeking full custody of the kids if she tried to run. She looked like a trapped animal, her eyes darting around, realizing her plans were falling apart. That was the moment I knew I had to stay strong. She was dangerous, and I couldn't let her get away with it. Meanwhile, I kept feeling the weight of betrayal. I was angry at her for lying, cheating, stealing, and for trying to take everything from me. But I also felt sadness, sad that the woman I loved had become someone so manipulative and selfish. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let things get so bad. But now it was too late for regrets. I had to focus on protecting myself and my kids. The most shocking thing came when I finally got her to admit she was planning to leave with the kids. She said she'd take them out of state, hide the money, and start over. I knew I had to stop her. I couldn't let her take my children away from me, especially not with her lies and schemes. I filed for full custody, citing her behavior and her plans to run. The court granted a temporary restraining order, and I felt a little relief knowing she couldn't leave with the kids right now. But I also knew this was just the beginning. She was still fighting, still denying everything and trying to manipulate everyone around her. I kept my guard up, prepared for whatever she threw at me next. I realized that this wasn't just about money or the house. It was about survival, about protecting what was left of my family's integrity. I'd come a long way from that naive guy who never suspected she'd betray him. Now I was fighting to reclaim my life, piece by piece. The court date came faster than I expected, and I was nervous as hell. All my evidence was laid out: emails, forged signatures, bank statements, everything. I knew Lisa was going to try every trick in the book to spin her lies and manipulate the judge. She was good at that, bitchy, sarcastic, always playing the victim. But I had the truth on my side. I had the law on my side. And I had the fear of losing everything: my house, my kids, my peace of mind. When I sat in that courtroom, watching her sit there with her smug smile and her fake tears, I felt a mix of rage and resolve. My lawyer was sharp, calling her out on every lie, every manipulation. We presented the evidence of the house sale, the forged documents, the secret accounts she'd opened, and her plans to leave with the kids. I saw her eyes flicker with panic as the judge listened carefully. She tried to deny everything, but the facts were overwhelming. Then the judge looked directly at her and asked, "Did you forge your husband's signature on the divorce settlement?" She hesitated, then tried to deny it, but the evidence was damning. The judge wasn't having it. She was found guilty of forgery, fraud, and attempting to hide assets. The court ordered her to return the money from the sale and to pay damages for her illegal actions. It was a huge win for me, but I knew it wasn't over yet. Throughout the hearing, I felt a strange mixture of vindication and exhaustion. I'd fought so hard, sacrificed so much, and finally I saw some justice. But I also knew Lisa wouldn't go down quietly. She was already planning her next move, probably trying to manipulate the custody arrangements or find a way to hide more money. I had to stay vigilant. I'd learned that she was a master at deception, and she'd do anything to get what she wanted. After the court session, I went home feeling drained but relieved. The judge had granted me full custody of the kids, citing her history of manipulation and her plans to run. I was thankful, but also worried about what she might do next. That night, I sat alone in the house I thought was ours, staring at the empty rooms. I felt a strange sense of emptiness and anger. I'd lost so much trust, so much stability. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by someone cold, manipulative, and dangerous. Over. The next few weeks, I focused on rebuilding my life. I moved into a smaller apartment, got a new job, and worked tirelessly to keep my kids safe and happy. I kept the evidence I had collected close, knowing that Lisa was still out there plotting her next move. I kept the restraining order in place, and my lawyer warned me she might try to appeal or fight for custody again. But I was prepared for that. I knew her tricks now. One thing I learned from all this is how fragile trust is, and how quickly it can be shattered. I always thought I knew my wife, that she was the woman I married and loved. Turns out she was a master of lies, a con artist hiding behind a pretty face. It's a hard lesson, but I refuse to let her define me or ruin my future. I've realized that I can survive betrayal, that I can stand up for myself, and that sometimes the only way to protect what's yours is to fight for it. Now I'm focusing on healing, physically, emotionally, and financially. I still get angry when I think about everything she did, but I also feel a strange sense of relief. I'm free from her manipulation, free from her lies. I've learned to trust my instincts more, to watch for the warning signs, and to never let someone like her get so close again. If anything, this experience has made me stronger, more cautious, and more aware of what real betrayal looks like. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing: I won't be a victim anymore. I'll rebuild my life for myself and for my kids. And I'll never forget the lessons I've learned about trust, about betrayal, and about fighting for what's right. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole nightmare changed me. I used to think that marriage was about trust, about building something together, but I learned the hard way that some people are just masters at deception. Lisa's betrayal wasn't just about the affair or the stolen money. It was about her complete lack of respect for everything we built. She thought she could manipulate her way out of everything, hide her lies, and walk away with what she wanted. But I refused to be a pawn in her game. The biggest lesson I've taken from all this is that you can't trust blindly. People will show you who they are eventually. Sometimes it's a lie, sometimes it's betrayal, and sometimes it's both. I was naive, I admit, but I also think that's part of being human. You want to believe in the best in people, especially someone you've committed your life to. But now I see clearly. I see the warning signs I ignored, the red flags I dismissed, and I understand that sometimes fighting for yourself is the only way to survive. This experience has made me more cautious, yes, but also more resilient. I've learned how to stand up for myself, how to protect my kids, and how to cut out the toxicity that once consumed my life. I don't hate Lisa. I feel sorry for her, honestly. She's a woman who thought she could cheat, steal, and manipulate her way through life, but she underestimated me. And I'm proud that I fought back, that I refused to let her destroy me completely. My kids are the biggest reason I keep going. They're young, innocent, and deserve a stable, loving environment. I've committed myself to giving them the best life possible, despite the mess their mother made. I want to be the kind of dad they can trust, someone they can look up to, not just because I work hard, but because I stand for honesty and integrity. I hope someday they'll understand what I've been through and see that even in the darkest moments, there's a way out. As for Lisa, I don't know what her future holds. Maybe she'll keep running, maybe she'll try to manipulate her way into another scheme. But I've learned that I can't control her anymore. I can only control myself. I've set boundaries, I've protected my kids, and I've reclaimed my life. The pain will fade, but the lessons will stay with me forever. In the end, I want to say this to anyone else out there who might be going through something similar. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep. But you're stronger than you think. Don't let anyone take away your dignity or your peace. Fight for what's right, for your happiness, and for the ones you love. The road to healing is long, but it's worth it. I've learned that sometimes losing everything is the only way to truly start over. And honestly, that's what I needed, to hit rock bottom so I could rise again, better, wiser, and more aware than ever before.